March 8th, 2014. A Boeing 777 vanishes mid-flight with 239 souls aboard, leaving behind only 7 faint satellite pings and a trail of speculation spanning a decade. The official story insists we lost MH370 to the sea. Multiple unexplained clues, from deliberate system shutdowns to debris scattered across distant shores, have defied any clear answer. If modern jets are not supposed to disappear, how can 7 competing theories still rival each other for the truth? The evidence is fixed, yet the mystery endures. So what really happened that night, and which theory fits the unforgiving facts? At 1:07 in the morning, MH370's ACARS system sent its final routine data transmission. ACARS, which stands for Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, was designed to send automated status reports to the airline, including engine performance and position. But after 1:07, the system fell silent. The next scheduled message, set for 1:37, never arrived. Investigators later determined that ACARS was not interrupted by malfunction or accident. It was manually disabled sometime between those 2 timestamps, a window that stands out for its precision. Just 2 minutes after the last radio call from the cockpit at 1:19, "Goodnight Malaysia 370," the aircraft's transponder stopped responding to secondary radar. This device, essential for air traffic control, broadcasts the plane's identity and altitude. Its sudden loss at 1:21 meant MH370 vanished from civilian radar, leaving only primary radar, used mostly by the military, able to track its movements, and even that only as an unidentified echo. No distress call was ever made. No emergency code was entered. The silence was not a symptom of chaos or confusion in the cockpit. Instead, each system went offline in a sequence that matches the checklist for manual shutdowns, not a cascading electrical failure. The timing, ACARS first, then the transponder, suggests a deliberate process, not a random event. With both ACARS and the transponder disabled, the only signals still reaching the outside world came from the aircraft's satellite communication terminal. This system, designed for phone calls and data, continued to send out automated handshakes to the Inmarsat satellite network. These hourly pings, invisible to the crew and passengers, would become the last traces of the flight's existence. From this point forward, every theory about MH370 must grapple with the fact that someone or something systematically silenced the aircraft's voice, leaving only the faintest digital footprints behind. Civilian air traffic controllers lost MH370 from their screens at 1:21 in the morning. That was not the end of the plane's traceable journey. Deep inside a military radar facility near Butterworth, Malaysian defense operators tracked an unidentified aircraft making a sharp turn west, cutting back across the Malay Peninsula and skirting Penang's coastline. This was not a routine blip. The radar showed the plane flying low over land, then veering northwest over the Strait of Malacca, finally vanishing near the Andaman Sea around 2:22 in the morning. Yet, for nearly 3 days, this critical information stayed locked within military channels. Civilian authorities and international partners continued combing the South China Sea the planned route, while the real trail led hundreds of miles in the opposite direction. Inside Malaysia's own airspace, civil and military coordination broke down. Air traffic controllers tried to reach MH370 by radio and cell cal, assuming a technical glitch or a lost signal. It was not until March 11th, at a press conference, that Malaysia's leadership revealed the military radar track to the world. By then, ships and aircraft from multiple countries had spent over 72 hours searching the wrong ocean. The initial window for finding floating debris or survivors had closed. This delay was not just a bureaucratic misstep. It shaped the entire investigation. When the radar data was finally shared with international partners, including Australia's search planners and Inmarsat's satellite analysts, it triggered a massive pivot. The search shifted from the South China Sea to the vast southern Indian Ocean. But the lost time and misallocated resources meant that the first, most critical days were spent far from where the aircraft actually traveled. The consequences of those early hours echo through every theory and every search effort that followed. Without immediate access to the military radar data, the trail grew colder, and the world's best chance at finding answers slipped further out of reach. In July 2015, a piece of aircraft wreckage washed ashore on Reunion Island, thousands of miles from the original search zone. French investigators from the Bureau d'Enquête et d'Analyse, working alongside engineers from Boeing and the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, began a painstaking examination. The part was quickly identified as a right-wing flaperon from a Boeing 777, confirmed by part numbers and maintenance records as belonging to MH370. This was the first physical evidence that the missing flight had ended in the Indian Ocean. Lab teams studied every surface and fracture in detail. The leading edge of the flaperon showed only minor damage, while the trailing edge was torn and serrated with an unzipped appearance. Fasteners and hinges had failed in tension, not in compression. No traces of fire, heat deformation, or explosive residue were present. The composite skin and honeycomb core were largely intact, with fibers pulled out rather than kinked or crushed. These signatures pointed to a single, overwhelming force, consistent with a sudden, high-energy impact with water, not a controlled or gentle descent. Further analysis of additional debris, including flap segments and fairing panels, found along African shores, revealed similar patterns. The outboard flap piece, recovered from Tanzania, showed internal damage, matching the geometry of a fully retracted flap at the moment of separation. This ruled out the possibility that the aircraft's flaps were extended for a ditching maneuver. Across all recovered parts, investigators found no evidence of burning or prolonged exposure to heat, which undermines scenarios involving in-flight fire. Forensic engineers reconstructed the final moments from these clues. The fracture lines and tension failures aligned with the forces of a rapid, uncontrolled descent. The absence of controlled descent markers, such as extended flaps or large, intact, floating surfaces, suggested the aircraft struck the ocean at high speed and broke apart on impact. The physical evidence, piece by piece, pointed away from a soft landing and toward a violent end far out at sea. CSIRO oceanographer David Griffin and his team faced a puzzle. How could a piece of MH370's wing end up on Reunion Island, more than 4,000 kilometers from the suspected crash zone? Using powerful supercomputers, they released thousands of virtual particles into digital models of the Indian Ocean, tracing how surface currents, eddies, and wind might carry floating debris. The models were built on real oceanographic data, HICOM, CMEMS, and Oscar reanalysis, factoring in windage and the seasonal drift patterns that define this vast sea. Their approach started with the confirmed debris. The flaperon found on Reunion in July 2015 became a time-stamped marker. By running the clock backward, Griffin's team identified a band of possible origin points along the so-called seventh arc, the line drawn by the final satellite handshake with MH370. The drift simulation showed that only debris starting between 30 and 36 degrees south latitude would have arrived at Reunion within the actual discovery window. Debris released further north would have reached land too quickly, and further south it would have been lost to the Southern Ocean. The barnacles clinging to the flaperon offered a second line of evidence. Marine biologists analyzed their growth rings and isotope signatures, confirming the part had spent more than a year drifting through open water, exposed to temperature swings that matched the southern mid-latitudes. Other confirmed and likely debris, flap segments, fairings, and interior panels, washed up on beaches in Mozambique, Madagascar, and South Africa, all within a 2-year window. Each find reinforced the drift model's results, clustering the likely crash zone within a 600-kilometer-wide swath west of Australia. These oceanographic reconstructions did not just validate the satellite data, they narrowed the search field for underwater missions. The debris patterns and drift timelines ruled out northern impact sites and placed the highest probability along the mid-latitude stretch of the seventh arc. For search planners, this convergence of biology, physics, and ocean modeling defined the most promising corridor for locating MH370's final resting place. Two theories have shaped the search for answers in the MH370 case. One is deliberate action by someone in the cockpit. The other is sudden incapacitation of everyone on board. Each draws from the same pool of evidence, but they paint very different pictures of what happened that night. Investigators looking at the possibility of intent focused on Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. With over 18,000 hours of flight experience, Zahari was respected and trusted. When police examined his home flight simulator, they found a route, partially deleted, mirroring the aircraft's final arc, departing Kuala Lumpur, turning northwest, then veering south into the Indian Ocean until fuel exhaustion. The simulated path was not identical, but its destination, a remote, empty stretch of sea, was eerily similar to where MH370 is believed to have ended. This, combined with the precise manual shutdown of ACARS and the transponder, and the complex turnback across the Malay Peninsula, pointed to someone with technical skill and intent. Yet no motive emerged. Zahari's finances were in order, his health records unremarkable, his relationships stable. There was no note, no sign of crisis. The absence of motive left the theory suspended between evidence and speculation. If the cockpit was breached by a third party, or if a pilot acted alone, the perpetrator would have needed to lock out the CO pilot, disable communications, depressurize the cabin to incapacitate everyone else in under a minute, and then fly alone for hours. The rival theory centers on hypoxia at altitude. At 35,000 feet, a sudden loss of cabin pressure can render crew and passengers unconscious in less than 60 seconds. If a decompression or electrical failure occurred, the autopilot could have flown the programmed route south, sending out satellite pings until fuel ran out. This model fits the evidence of a long, uneventful flight and a rapid, uncontrolled descent at the end. But the timing is problematic. The deliberate sequence of system shutdowns, ACARS, then the transponder, requires a conscious pilot. Trained crews are expected to send a distress call or attempt an emergency descent. Here there was only silence. The physiological window for action is brief. Confusion within a minute, incapacitation soon after. The lack of any distress signal remains unexplained. Without cockpit recorders, the question of intent lingers. The search for the black boxes is a search for motive, not just wreckage. A shipment of lithium-ion batteries in MH370's forward cargo hold raised immediate questions. Investigators recalled the Egypt Air 777 cockpit fire in 2011, which started on the ground and was traced to the oxygen system. The idea of a battery fire or electrical malfunction forcing a return gained traction. Yet maintenance logs for MH370 showed no unresolved issues. The aircraft had cleared all checks, and its systems were built with redundancy to guard against a single-point failure that could knock out communications. Forensic teams examined every recovered fragment: Reunion's flaperon, the outboard flap from Tanzania, and interior panels from Mozambique, searching for signs of heat or smoke. They found none. No soot, no melted composites, no charring. The paint and materials remained unmarked. The plane was able to fly for over 5 hours after vanishing from radar, and that endurance weakened the fire theory. In-flight fires, severe enough to silence communications, rarely allow for such endurance. Controlled ditching was another theory. Some believed a skilled pilot might have attempted a gentle water landing, hoping to minimize casualties and conceal the wreckage. But the evidence did not fit. The flaperon's brakes and the damage to the outboard flap pointed to a retracted position, flaps up, not extended for a landing. Hydrodynamic analysis revealed tension fractures, not the compression expected from a soft ditching. No large intact floating debris surfaced. Everything suggested a violent breakup, not a careful touchdown. Mechanical failure was considered. Could a cascading fault have disabled radios, the transponder, and ACARS at once? Investigators reviewed the jet's maintenance history and found nothing alarming. The sequence of systems going silent in turn and navigation waypoints followed precisely did not match a random electrical collapse. Boeing triple redundant design makes a total blackout extremely rare. especially one that leaves the aircraft controllable for hours. Hijacking and external interference were scrutinized. Every passenger and crew member was vetted. No credible threats emerged. No group claimed responsibility. The debris scattered along African shores ruled out secret landings. Military shoot-down theories, stoked by missing radar data, found no support. There were no missile fragments, no blast marks, and no matching satellite evidence. A large-scale cover-up would require many cooperating parties across countries and agencies, something the evidence does not support. Each alternative theory ran into hard evidence that refused to cooperate, leaving more contradictions than answers. Until the main wreckage and the black boxes are recovered, definitive conclusions remain out of reach. A decade after MH370 vanished, the world's best investigators still circle a set of unanswered questions. Aviation experts, search leaders, and technical analysts now group the possibilities into three broad explanations. The first centers on a catastrophic accident or medical emergency, leaving everyone on board incapacitated and the aircraft flying on autopilot until fuel exhaustion. The second involves deliberate diversion by someone in the cockpit, with the pilot alive and in control through the final descent. The third splits the difference, a deliberate turn and system shutdown, followed by pilot incapacitation, leaving the jet to finish its journey alone. Each scenario fits some of the evidence, but none can account for every fact. The official Malaysian report, released in 2018, confirms that the aircraft's communications were deliberately disabled, and that manual inputs guided the initial turn back, but it stops short of assigning a cause. No theory closes every gap. For families, investigators, and search teams, the limits of current technology are clear. The southern Indian Ocean, mapped by satellite handshakes and narrowed by drift models and barnacle analysis, remains the likeliest resting place. Yet after more than 230,000 square kilometers of seabed scanned by sonar and autonomous vehicles, the main fuselage and black boxes have never been found. The recorders capable of revealing cockpit voices, system warnings, and flight control movements are the only path to a definitive answer. Without them, every theory remains an educated guess, anchored to incomplete data. The next chapter is already in motion. Ocean Infinity, the deep-sea exploration firm that led the 2018 search, has announced plans to return to the southern Indian Ocean in December 2025. Their new fleet of autonomous underwater vehicles can scan larger areas at greater depths, using improved sonar and artificial intelligence to distinguish wreckage from natural features. The company has a performance-based agreement with Malaysia, payment only if the wreckage is found. Search planners have refined the target zone using updated drift models and satellite analysis, focusing on the mid-latitude stretch of the 7th arc, identified by both debris arrivals and satellite data. For families, the renewed mission offers a rare sense of momentum. For investigators, it is a final chance to recover the black boxes and at last resolve the mystery that has haunted modern aviation. Until the wreckage is found, the story of MH370 remains unfinished. A decade later, MH370's disappearance still defies every technological tool we trust to track the world. In an era where every moment seems recorded, 239 people remain unaccounted for, reminding us that certainty is never guaranteed. Until new evidence surfaces, the world's most advanced search is also a search for closure. The mystery endures, challenging how much we truly know. What is your theory? Let's talk in the comments.